Hello, and welcome to this eCampus News webcast. My name is Andrew Barber. I'm a senior contributing editor with eCampus News, and I'll be the moderator for today's presentation. It's sponsored by Dell and poses the question, are you considering a student mobility initiative on your campus? This is the second in a two-part webinar series on this topic. And today we're going to focus on how you can obtain buy-in for your mobile initiative. And if you missed the first part, all I could say is shame on you, but fortunately you can replay it by clicking on the link that is in the resource links panel on your console. Now, before we get started, I just want to take a couple of minutes to talk about a few things on this console. First, today's event will be recorded. In a couple of days, we'll send you an email that will contain a link to the recorded event today, and you'll also be able to download a PDF of the presentation. And in that same email, we'll include a link to part one of the webinar from earlier. And if you want to download today's slides straight away, you can do so from within that same resource list on your console. And secondly, please do ask questions. At any time, at any point during the presentation, if you have a question, just type it into the Q&A box on your console and hit the submit button. You don't have to wait until the end of the presentation to ask questions. Ask away at any point. And I hope we'll have 10 or 15 minutes at the end when our speakers can answer your questions. But in case you have questions that you think of after the presentation, we're going to give you the email contact for each of the speakers at the end, so you can contact them directly. We also have a chat function, which can be launched by the brown group chat icon at the bottom of your screen. Use that chat, please, to talk among yourselves or to contact me or the eCampus News team with any technical issues that are the concerns. But please don't use the chat function to ask questions of the speakers. They just won't have time to monitor those chats. If you have a question, use the Q&A panel instead. In this two-part webinar, we're taking a look at the mobility initiative undertaken by Southern Illinois University on its Carbondale campus. SIUC ranks as a top research institution in the U.S., but it also serves as an access university. Of its 20,000 students, some 47% are first-generation college attendees, and 35% of entering students are minorities. To tell us about SIUC's mobility initiative, I want to welcome back our two speakers from SIU. Olinda Hubbs serves as the education/change management coordinator in the IT department. She develops creative initiatives and innovative solutions to help the IT group serve users and campus stakeholders. Much of her work involves developing relationships between IT and that campus community. She's managed the SIUC Mobile Dog tablet demonstration since 2013. Our other speaker, Chris Guy, is the Director of Technology Services and Project Management at SIU. And Chris has been part of the Mobile Tablet Initiative since its inception in 2012. And prior to becoming director, he was the project manager responsible for the rollout. And he continues to lead the project along with his other responsibilities. At the end of Chris and Olinda's presentation, we'll also hear briefly from John Phillips, who's Director for Dell's Global Education Practice. Hello again, Olinda and Chris. It's great to have you back. Chris, why don't you get us started by giving us some background on the technology initiative, the mobile technology initiative at SIU?
Thanks, Andrew. Before I get into the scope, I wanted to point out one thing about the about SIU slide that was important for us. You notice on there it says approximately 47% of our students are first-generation college students. And that is really important for kind of the goals and the reason we did this project, and also in some of the success that we've seen. A first-generation college student means they are coming to college without any family members that have attended college. They don't understand what it's like to have to spend $500 on books when they get here. They don't really understand that there's no teachers babysitting them anymore. If they don't show up for class, if they don't turn in their homework, it's kind of on them. So that's huge for our university. So the scope of our effort, we started with a small pilot in fall, or the spring semester of 2013. We distributed about 300 tablets to 7 course sections. We had already committed to the major project in the fall of 2013, but this pilot helped us kind of get a grasp on what we needed to do. So in fall 2013, we distributed to all incoming freshmen. It was about 2,900. And so far, we've distributed almost 7,000 tablets. This year, fall 2015, we'll distribute about 4,200 more. The reason that number is so much bigger, this year we plan to distribute to all transfer students as well. So any new student coming to the university will get a tablet. We also developed a mobile app suite called Mobile Dog app with Dell Labs, one of Dell's partners, and we incorporated ebooks and other materials. So the reason for our decision both to go with the tablets and Dell are several reasons. We had experienced several years of declining enrollment. Our retention was horrible. It was in the low 60% from freshman to sophomore. So we really needed to do something to attract students and also try to lower costs for them as well. So we did some research, our CIO at the time, and found that no universities were doing this at the scale we wanted to do it. And some of the large universities were doing it maybe little pockets, say one particular major, but nobody was doing it for the whole university. So we knew that would give us a leg up.
Well, and don't you find too, Chris, that after we've done this for a while, that in talking with students, there are a lot of other reasons that we couldn't come up with early on because the students will tell us what their needs are or what they're missing or what their parents' anxieties are about their coming to college? Oh, yeah. That first year, we learned so much after that first year talking to students. Dell actually came on site and did some video and some interviews. We just learned a lot from them, things to improve on the next year.
Well, Chris, you laid out a whole bunch of really pretty compelling reasons about why the Mobile Technology Initiative made sense and why it was needed on campus. Given the strength of your case, why was it so important then to go out and obtain campus buy-in for it?
Well, there are so many stakeholders on a campus, from administrators to faculty to other supporting roles, and we needed each of them from their areas to support us, to help us out. It appeared to be an IT initiative since IT was the one leading it, but it was definitely more of a campus initiative as a whole. Developing that buy-in with stakeholders and decision makers is obviously just critical.
Can you walk us, through a little bit about what you need to do to lay the groundwork for an initiative like this? I mean, it seems as if this, laying the foundation and getting set up, it seems like this is probably one of the toughest parts of implementing and maintaining a mobile initiative. Is that true?
Yeah, we had to take a hard look at our infrastructure early on because that's some of the things that took the longest to build up. At the time we decided to do this, we did not even have Wi-Fi in all of our classroom buildings. There was an existing project to do that, but it was going to be spread over about a year and a half. We had to speed that up and get that done in about a semester. So that was difficult. We really didn't know all the resources we were going to need and what the investment, but we took what we thought and just about doubled it in some areas just to make sure, because we knew one of the biggest mistakes would be to fail in one of these specific areas early on, and anybody that was on the fence would have then been on the wrong side of the fence, in our opinion. So we started calculating, universities don't really think of things as ROI. I've spent most of my career in the corporate world, so ROI was important. They don't think about that type of thing in higher ed, but we looked at that as an IT department in supporting the initiative.
Yeah, and I think, don't you agree that one of the things that should have come out at the beginning of what you said was that you've got to start early. in getting your facts together, getting your stakeholders and decision makers buying in, and then I always think of part of that important early process is putting it in writing, getting all these things, and basically understanding that you can't just walk into a meeting and pitch it. You're going to have to walk into a meeting and pitch what you have to sell, basically, but then have the facts to support it, and also not only have the facts to support it, but have something to leave with people. So those people who are just getting into the process and just learning the pieces of information have something to go back to and refer to. And I always found that it's very helpful if you give people something in writing that they can explain to their peers or to their bosses in exactly the terms you want it explained in. So they're using your talking points to pass the message along to the audience you want it passed along to.
Yeah, we didn't. The first year, you wouldn't really want to model how we did it the first year. There was nothing out there from any other universities for us to take, so we wrote the plan as we went in many areas. I mean, some of the stuff was easy to predict because it was kind of commodity IT type stuff, but we wrote the plan as we went. The second year was 100% easier as we had a lot of that documentation done. And this year has been just terrific in the planning process.
Well, you said that maybe you would have done things slightly different from your first year, but you've learned the lesson that you need to do the research and have this written plan. Once you have that, what's the next step in soliciting that buy-in?
So you need to kind of take a look at who your stakeholders are versus your decision makers. And there is some crossover there, but there's also some differences. And you definitely want to set strong boundaries between the two. You don't want stakeholders to feel like they have too much power and authority that they can say something to disrupt you or stop what you're doing. But you want them also to feel like you're taking their opinions to heart. So.
Yeah, I think absolutely. You want them to feel involved, and you want them to feel like their say matters. And a lot of times it really is valuable what they have to say and the way that they say it, because that's how they will speak to their peer group. Right?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And then, we made a list of key players just so everyone out there can see that the key people that you're talking to aren't necessarily just the people on your team. And
yep, you've got, you can see some of the list here, and there's probably even more that we weren't thinking about. But we use a lot of grad assistants for teaching on our campus, as probably everybody who's listening does as well. They were big in getting buy-in. We think of the younger people coming up as the more tech-savvy and favorable towards technology, but we found that wasn't exactly the case. So we really had to work with our procurement and legal departments to get student contracts, for example, taken care of. Administrators were very important to help push things through if they got kind of held up in other areas. So documenting them, putting together their roles, their responsibilities, and a communication plan, how to keep them involved is very important.
Yeah, and I kind of think there's value to you trying to work this project through. What do we think we can involve them with, and what do we think we need them for? So you kind of have that clear in your mind. Why are we going to these people? What do we need to ask them for? What do we need to learn from them? Things like that. And then from the various kind of key players that we identified, we kind of broke that up into people with money, people with influence, and people with resources. And those are different kinds of decision makers that you'll end up working with, don't you think? And maybe you can, relay one of the groups that we had to work with and what we did with them.
Yeah, we had Like Linda said, some of these people kind of are the same, the people with the money, people with influence, resources. Like most campuses, we are very much kind of driven by the academic side of things, the faculty side of things, which is the way it should be in a lot of areas, but occasionally that can be a hindrance to being a progressive, quick adopting university. So there's one department on campus called our Center for Teaching Excellence, and their director was heavy Mac. She'd been using Mac all her life, Apple type stuff. So initially she was kind of pushing for iPads in this initiative, but it didn't take long showing her the Dell technology, the Windows 8 tablets. She quickly became on our side and very much a positive influence out there to getting buy-in from the faculty side. She's a tenured faculty member in addition to being the director of the Center for Teaching Excellence.
Yeah, and I think, wouldn't you agree that all of these initiatives or initiatives like this, the equipment is a secondary thought, but it's the initiative itself and how are we going to get this technology and this power and this learning tool into the hands of student and faculty. And so I think that's probably why she came along like she did. And although she has her preference as far as the tools she would use, she could realize the value that having this a tool would bring to the students and the faculty.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, she quickly understood that the weaknesses of kind of her favorite, I should say, tool, and was sold over into the Dell Windows 8 tablets.
And then, I also think that your different decision makers fall into basic categories of you have your advocates and you have your resistant stakeholders. And I think your advocates can be advocates for you for a lot of different reasons. They can be committed to the effort. They can be committed to the new technology. They can be committed to let's make a positive change, or they can just flat out be committed to you. And any one of those things, having a person or people on your side that can do that for an initiative are invaluable. And then on the other side of that, I think you have to realize that you have resistant stakeholders and decision makers, and they can be equally resistant to the same things, change or technology, or what negative effects they think might come with this, or just you. And I think if you can identify positive people are responding to this or to these various things, or people that are not so supportive are responding to these negative things, and work to leverage those as best you can, you'll be much more successful, I think. Yeah.
Learning styles or teaching styles, I guess, is, it's a culture that takes a long time to change. It's like trying to turn the Titanic, I guess. It takes a long time. So we were just very patient in waiting them out and kind of coaching them and helping them along. But one of the benefits that we did have, which I would certainly recommend, is find some people on the academic side, the faculty side, that are very much in support of the project, that have some ideas how they can integrate it into the classroom pretty early on.
Yeah, and I think that, don't you think, Chris, that once you, you identify your positive advocates and then the resistant pockets, you leverage that and you consult with your advocates early, you update them regularly, you get knowledge from them, you use their influence among peers, or you ask them to help you among their peers, and realize that they can really make or break a project. And I think you have to cultivate that relationship over time. And don't you think you also have to build new or create new advocates over time as well?
Yeah, the players in the game are constantly changing. At the time we first started this project, our administrators at the top were very progressive. They loved change, so they were very much behind us, and having them as our primary sponsors pushing it, we were able to get a lot done in a very short amount of time, which and as I've talked to a lot of other institutions that are trying to do this, sometimes it's really slow moving. It's taken them a long time to get support. So having the administration on board was good. Once we lost a lot of those administrators, it quickly became slower and more difficult to get those things accomplished.
I think that's why you have to keep building relationships over time, so you do have different people to go to. And so, maybe as this next slide says, you have people that are on the fence, and over time you can change them from a little more resistant to a yes, where they do realize the value of an initiative. And a couple of ways to do that, is again, ask for their input and solicit that information personally. I think there's nothing like going to people personally and say, I really need your help, or I really value your opinion, and getting them to contribute. Just that, I guess, respect lends a different kind of creates a different kind of relationship, I guess. And then I think you have your yeses and your maybes who can be swayed to yes, but then I think you also will run across viewpoints that are opposed to what you're thinking, and you have to respect them as well. And
one of our biggest pockets of kind of resistance or skepticism was on the faculty side. So one of the things that we started was a technology mentor program, and this grew out of, if you notice it, and always, or the last several years, been one of EDUCAUSE's top 10 IT issues, and that is faculty adoption of technology. So what this technology mentor program is we went out and we chose, we didn't necessarily choose, we had a volunteer from each department who really was a heavy user of our learning technologies, our learning management system. We trained them up, we gave them some tools, and they became peer mentors for all of the other faculty in our department. We gave them a little bit of a stipend. We required them to have some workshops every year to attend monthly trainings. But that really helped getting some good buy-in and some positive kind of PR for the program.
Yeah, don't you think those technology mentors are like some key advocates for you in the department, and they can sway or talk to people that we just really don't have contact with or have kudos with, maybe, or a relationship with? Yeah,
they have definitely been, since we started that up, very, very strong positive voices.
Yeah, I think so too. And then, I was mentioning kind of the opposing voices, and I think the way that you work with them is, again, you respect them, you listen to what they have to say, you work with them personally, and I don't think you argue with somebody that's opposing what you're presenting. I think you just ask more questions of them and see what they have to bring to the table. And I think the best you can expect from truly resistant pockets is that they'll listen, they may be respectful, and they're not such a strong no anymore. But I think it's really critical. The last point that is on this slide is about understanding the true power of their no. And a true no can be much more difficult to work against than somebody who's brought into you and you've been respectful and you have a relationship with them. So I think that's one of the reasons to at least listen to your resistant pockets. And then I think it's really critical that you go out and talk to people. And what are they going to ask you?
Well, let me come in there, and that's the question is you've sort of taken us through the steps of identifying, laying the groundwork for the project, what it's going to be, and then identifying who the key stakeholders and advocates are that are going to be needed to be persuaded, and they range from supporters to people who are pretty resistant to what you're doing. As you go forward from there, what are some of the arguments that you're going to take to them? What is the proof that you can use that's going to make that, with a convincing argument, that's going to win everyone over? Can you go into that a little bit?
Sure. So we And I just want to remind the audience real quick, too, if you have any questions about anything we've talked about, go ahead and get them typed in, submitted to Andrew, so we can answer them at the end. We're going to try to leave plenty of time at the end for questions. But when we started this, we had several goals that we wanted this project to do. You can see them up there on the slides: increase enrollment, retention, cost, that sort of thing. So a lot of people were kind of skeptical of whether this project would be able to do it. So the first year was important, just convincing them to wait it out and see what happens. So the result of that, that we distributed at the end of this fall 11,500 devices, but between fall of 2012 and 2013, our enrollment went up 13%. This was the biggest enrollment increase in over 20 years for SIU. And then it went up an additional 5% from fall 2013 to 2014. Our retention increased 8.3% from 2013 to 2014. This was a huge number. We had hired a retention firm at the time, a consultant, to kind of help us with that. And she had recommended several things to do, but none of her recommendations were in place yet when this measurement was taken. So we can't really attribute it all to the tablet program, but we think that it had a big indication. Now, one of the things we were doing is going out and recruiting a higher level of student, but the biggest increase in retention was in the underserved, which those first-generation college students, low income. We retained them at 12.5%, which was just an incredible number.
Yeah, and besides the hard story or the actual numbers, I also like to mention that there's a soft story to tell too, and that includes like who's positively affected and how. And what do your supportive stakeholders say, and where will this initiative situate you among your peer group? What are the things that are difficult to measure in numbers, but really do count and really do make a great story? And I think that touching people in that emotional way, or a way that they can't quite quantify, but they certainly understand, is really important to do. And then one of the things that it's hard to remember in the first part of an initiative, but it's easy to remember once you're passing the tablets or the mobile device out to students, is that there are students out there, and there's a human impact at the end of all of this. And, working with these students at every new orientation session, we hear amazing things from them about how the tablet or how the mobile initiative affects them, their studies, their interest in choosing SIU, their parents' ability to afford it, their ability to afford it, their parents' ease of mind, I guess, that they are going to be able to have the technology that other students have and they may not have. So I think that those kind of things are truly important as well. And, I don't think you can overlook those.
Absolutely not.
No.
Well, you may have, when you're putting your written plan together, and you may put down some incredibly strong arguments for why an initiative like this is needed. But in the end, on so many campuses nationwide, isn't it going to boil down to cost in the end? I mean, and that's especially true among people who are resistant. Cost is obviously sometimes one of the easiest roadblocks to throw up. So how do you deal with the issue of cost, and how do you calculate it and take it? Chris, why don't you take it from there?
All right. Well, I notice we're getting short on time, so I'm going to kind of go quickly through these next few slides. And if there's anything that anybody out there we don't get to, please feel free to email Linda or I. Our email addresses are on the slide. So cost is obviously a big one, especially in Illinois. If you just Google Illinois, the first things that are going to come up are probably dozens of articles about how our state government is so far in debt, we're in disarray. So it was very important. It was important for us to utilize our partner Dell and some other ways to kind of get good word out into the community as well. We are a state-funded school, and in the newspaper articles we could see things coming in about wasting their state tax dollars and that kind of thing. So, that's another stakeholder that we didn't necessarily consider, and that was the community. But
that's good. Yes.
We built arguments around to justify the cost on those enrollment retention numbers. I'm sure your university kind of has a value. They know how much revenue, how much tuition each student brings in. So you can use those numbers to kind of justify what you may be spending. And then you can use hard data like we've gotten from SIU to justify that and work through that with your institutions.
Yeah, and I think there are two pieces, too. There's the price and then the cost. And you can lay out hard price numbers, but again, the cost is more intangible, and you have like cost of change, cost of adoption, cost of downtime, and that's something I don't think you necessarily need to be able to argue, but you do need to acknowledge it, because that's another point where the resistant pockets can come forward and really throw you off your game or your position in starting to question costs that you really don't have a hard answer for.
Yeah, if your institutions are similar to ours, IT is kind of looked like, I'm kind of quoting one of our administrators, thought of it as like a back office, a supporting role. They don't even know we're here if everything's working properly. So you've really got to think about those costs of disruption and that sort of thing that really bring the negative aspects to life. So just make sure you recognize those, document them, and know what to do about them.
Yeah, I think those are the things that scare people too. So It's really helpful to acknowledge those. And then I think, all of this boils down to a sale. You're trying to sell the people in your institution, in your community, on an idea. And you always sell, it's an old sales adage that you sell with benefits. And so you need to know what those benefits are, and they change with each set of stakeholders or each set of decision makers. They all have something different that is a benefit to them. And, it can be, what do we get for our time or our money, or what does my department get, or it may be as simple as what do I get. But you need to be able to address differently to your different audiences, what the benefits are to them for the initiative, and do that very clearly and with good sound points that they can understand and appreciate.
Well, so we've just discussed over the last few slides just how important cost is, and that it often is central to resistance to a mobile technology initiative like this. So I imagine a lot of that opposition would disappear if there were viable ways to foot the bill for something like this. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the financial options you discovered as you went through the SIU initiative?
Sure. The first year, we really didn't take advantage of everything. We were behind the eight ball in that aspect, but grant funding, there's getting to be more and more opportunities for grants out there to get technology into the classroom. It's been out there for a long time in K through 12, but now that's kind of starting to trickle up to higher ed. The Gates Foundation puts out a lot of good grants. NSF, of course. Every college probably has the department on campus. Ours is Office of Sponsored Projects. They have their ear to the ground on a lot of those options and can help out. Vendor assistance, Dell, they just didn't come in and give us a quote for all these tablets. They really worked with us to figure out how we can pay for them. They located some sources of funding that we didn't necessarily have to fill out grants for, from Intel and Microsoft and some others. And we use a lot of student labor to image these tablets, to train on them, distribute them. We are, academic focused, of course, is our primary business. So getting those students that hands-on education, and it was also very, very inexpensive labor for us as well.
Linda, you and Chris have covered an awful lot of ground in 30 minutes, and it's a lot for attendees to take in. Can you, as we draw to the end and get close towards John's presentation, can you sort of take us back over the whole situation, give us the sort of executive summary of what it takes to get buy-in for an initiative like this?
Oh, sure. First you want to get some solid information and write a good plan, and you need an engaging pitch that really fits the audience that you're going to talk to. You need to understand stakeholders versus decision makers and where each comes into play. Recognize there are multiple audiences. Answer the question, what's in it for me for every one of those audiences. Understand where you have advocates and resistant pockets. Collect additional information from both your advocates and your resistant people, because they both have a point of view that you'll find useful while you're trying to convey your message. And then revise your plan or your pitch or your conversation with people over time, because it will change, and it will change, I think, dramatically from year 1 to 2 to 3 and so on.
Yeah, today's kind of an exciting day for us, too. Today, we've had almost 400 tablets. The very first shipments are starting to arrive today. So over the next probably 8 to 10 days, we're going to get 4,200 tablets in. So we kind of are going from a slow period now to where we're going to be probably putting in some 10-hour days over the next few weeks getting these things imaged.
And that's 4,200 this fall.
Yeah,
that's not in total. That's
right.
This fall.
Just the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I will, Chris and Linda, in the first part of the webinar series, you talked about how also important it was to find a good partner to move forward with you on an initiative like this. And that's really a perfect way to segue to our third and final speaker today, John Phillips. John is the director for Dell's global education practice, and he leads the worldwide strategy for Dell's education services and solutions. His team of education experts is focused on innovative technology solutions that are specifically designed to personalize learning for students and to increase efficiency in schools and universities. John, so we've heard the SIU story, and for those members of the audience who couldn't join us last week, why don't you tell us a little bit about Dell's approach to higher education?
Thank you, Andrew. It's very, very exciting to hear the story again and again from our partners at SIU and the great work that they're doing to really change some very key things, some very important metrics around enrollment and retention at their institution. And Dell's role, really in education is to be more than just a vendor, but really be a partner in education. And our goal is to find ways to enable technology to help transform the learning experience. And, so to be a good partner, there's some key things that we need to be focusing on. First and foremost, it's, can we help with technology to really drive learning initiatives, not just for the sake of technology. So, really focused on understanding what it means to create a more collaborative environment. How can technology infusion help create an engaging experience? A lot of our schools are really rethinking the way they're doing teaching and learning, and really designing spaces and designing project-based engagement. And, there's different types of technology that we obviously have been working on to be able to facilitate that, to create a better learning experience that's student invested and creates some productivity. And then obviously being able to help with technology in the blended learning environments to understand what can be done on campus and off campus. And so, for us, it's important to have the right technology. And we're fortunate to partner with Intel on that front to really create the right technology. Chris had mentioned that, early in the process of determining what the right technology was, and you'll kind of hear from me in a minute to talk about when that technology decision needs to be discussed and how it's put into a broader context. But specifically, understanding that, this was more than just passing out a device. It was really designed to create an experience for the student that would be enriching and that would be designed to drive learning and outcomes. And so, their conclusion led to into a modern Windows device that offered both the tablet experience and the experience with keyboard and input devices, which I think is very key when you're really focusing on a learning outcomes initiative. And so having the right devices is really important and the right partners to do that. In addition to that, it's do we have do we really have the right performance to be able to do university and college level learning materials and using specialized applications that we may have from one class to the other. So really having the right system really works. And so Intel's been obviously very supportive in that, creating the right technology. But it goes beyond that. The device is just one piece of the equation. And what we're really focused on is working with schools and universities and institutions around how do we get to students really feeling empowered in their learning environment. And to that, it's more around teaching and learning and professional development and the technology support in a rollout like this. SIU's been doing this for some years now, as you've heard, and they've really learned a lot of lessons around that. And one of the lessons that we've learned as a partner is to continue to focus on helping with implementation, helping with not just the technical aspects of implementation, but teacher, lecturer, professor readiness, really getting the institution comfortable with a different type of learning model to really make these less about an IT project and more about a learning initiative. So we do a lot of research around moving from that teacher-centered classroom design or that lecture hall only design to how do we put learners in collaborative environments and engage them and challenge them to learn. And that's really important. A big key ingredient of the success, I think, to what SIU's been doing is really around their approach in preparation and working with the professors and the teachers that will be seeing students come through their classrooms with devices and making sure that that's a meaningful learning experience. And so taking the foundation courses and making sure that the digital content all works in the app. In SIU's case, they call that the Mobile Dog app, and it gives a holistic, seamless experience to the digital content in the classes, to the campus aspects of campus life, whether it's wayfinding or registering for events. It's a really simple way to make all that work. But they don't just stop there. They really do that touch point between the teaching and learning and faculty to what they might and how they might use the technology to inspire students to engage. And I think that's where you see the difference. And we're focused as a partner in being able to deliver those types of services, support, consulting, help that goes beyond just making a device or making an infrastructure solution to support a device. And those aspects can't be, really overlooked because they will be the determination between a great rollout and a less successful endeavor. So, our role in education is to provide the right choice of technology, but support it both technically and from a learning design concept and doing professional learning around that. So, in summary, that's kind of what we do and what we've been doing and continue to do with SIU and our other colleges and universities around mobile initiatives like this.
Yeah.
And so with that, Andrew, I'll turn that over.
Andrew, before you jump in, I want to kind of mention something on what John said. Our CIO was very adamant that this did not turn into just a gimmick project where we wave a tablet around and say, hey, come to SIU and we'll give you a door prize. We really spent a lot of time crafting this into an initiative a program with our electronic textbooks, with applications, all that kind of stuff. So you will be much more successful in your goals of benefiting the students if you do that, if you take the time to do that. Go ahead, Andrew.
Right. No, well, thanks so much, Chris, and well, thank you, Chris and Olinda, for sharing how you secured buy-in for your mobile initiative and making sure that it was something valuable and not a gimmick as the initial concern was voiced to you. And thank you, John, for talking about how Dell partners with colleges and universities to create that learning environment and way beyond just some kind of a technology sale. We still have we have a little less than 15 minutes left for questions, so why don't we dive right in there. The first question will go to Chris and Olinda, and it concerns the fact that you're giving freshmen these tablets, and the question is, are students able to load their own apps and find alternative uses for their devices? In other words, do they own these things outright, and are they there to do with as they see fit, or are there parameters that you establish?
So they don't own them outright, but we do give them administrative rights on the local device. So they have immediate access to the App Store, the Windows 8 store, just with using their Microsoft account. They don't need administrative access for that, but we give them administrative access so they can install whatever they want. They have to obviously abide by the university's network acceptable use policies and guarantee that they're not going to do anything illegal with it, and that includes downloading music, movies, that sort of thing. But we encourage them to install Netflix, Hulu, all of that, games, whatever they want to do. The little bit of research that was out there when we started showed that if students take ownership of the devices, these programs are much more successful.
Yeah, I think it's much more interesting to the students if they have one device that they can access all the things that they need or want during the day. If they have to do, several devices, a lot of times they'll migrate to their preferred device and not the device that's for their academic use.
Sure, yeah. They are 18.
They're 18, yes they are.
Great. All right, well, we'll move on to another question from someone who at their school is launching a one-to-one program for freshmen this fall. And the issue that they are facing is helping faculty use e-textbooks versus hardback books. Plus, some of the publishers are still pushing the use of hardback books or bundling an e-textbook with a hard copy. At the last webinar, you talked a bit about the benefits of the e-textbook from a financial aid standpoint of having it loaded. Can you talk a little bit about faculty and student transitions to e-textbooks and how you handled it and how it's gone?
Sure. That was a big challenge for us, and it still is a challenge, to be honest. The advantage our first year, our core curriculum classes, which means 90-something% of the incoming freshmen had to take these same classes, speech, English, math, and our university kind of orientation course. That was all controlled by one special unit in the college. So they decided to go e-textbooks. We saved the students almost $300 in textbook fees that first year just using those. And a lot of those courses were taught by GAs who adopted the textbooks. Now, I would say 2 out of 4 of those subject classes loved it, were very favorable of it. One of them was moderately positive, and one of them we kind of had difficulty with getting used to it. But that's kind of how we did it. Now, the second year, we jumped up from probably 12 courses using eTextbook to over 70 just in that 1 year.
Yeah, and I think, too, one of the things that they're asking in this question is that how do you help faculty incorporate or adopt the e-textbooks. And I think one thing is they just have to have confidence in it. They have to be secure that when, especially if they're in front of a classroom where they're trying to get students to access something online or trying to access their books, that they aren't interrupted by the technology itself or by the lack of their ability to use the technology or to keep it functioning well, because then they get interrupted, they get leery of the device, and it maybe takes away a little bit of their prestige in front of the class. And I don't know that that's true, but it's a fear reliever to have either somebody help them learn how to do it, or maybe have somebody who's more knowledgeable, like a student assistant in the classroom with them, that can repair or work on the technology while they go on about their business and not be so concerned with that.
Yeah, definitely. Your point about the publishers, John, or Robbie, that is a good point. The publishers are kind of coming into the e-world kicking and screaming. They just, the market, they cannot charge as much for an e-textbook. It's so much easier to update them and that sort of thing. So we put a lot of pressure on the publishers, negotiated with them pretty hard, and most of them will convert paper textbooks to e-textbooks. One of the things we put pressure on them too, our students told us a truly designed e-textbook is full of interactive audio, video, question and answers. If a publisher goes out and just takes your book and turns it into a PDF, our students at least generally did not like that. So I think over the next few years we're really going to see a lot of ground gained in that area. I mean, it was the same thing that happened to the music industry, the movie industry.
I just want to come back, and I may have my numbers wrong here, but I think that in the last 4 years, SIU, you've handed out more than 10,000 Dell tablets. I think I got that number right. And the question we have is what has that done to the network, and how do you account for the extra bandwidth needed to support the learning that is now transitioning to these tablets? Can you talk a bit about network issues at SIU and what, if anything, you did to improve performance there?
Sure. I'm going to bet that most of your institutions have access to more and better bandwidth than we do. We are literally at the bottom of Illinois, surrounded by a bunch of farmland. There is not much options here, especially, we have to pay a much higher price to get bandwidth. We doubled our bandwidth. I think right now we're at like 3 or 4 gig to the internet. That's I1, and we've got some I2 as well. But we doubled that, and we're in the process of tripling it. We're going to go up to 10 over the next few months, but we haven't had any problems. We have not peaked yet, and all of our student email is in the cloud, so we haven't had any issues. But we did have to significantly increase our access points around campus. We're in the process of installing outdoor Wi-Fi as well. So some of our sister institutions in the state that are near Chicago or some of the big cities, they have got very cheap, just gigabytes or gigabits of internet at their fingertips.
Okay. And for the devices themselves, giving a tablet to freshmen, can you talk a little bit about some of the usual concerns that you would hear about what happens in the case of the loss, the theft, the breakage of the device, and also, following on from that, the safety of the devices themselves in terms of making sure that malware doesn't come via a student device into the network. So why don't we first talk about the actual hardware itself and loss issues and insurance and that kind of thing.
So we get Dell's complete care warranty, so it's covered against drops and spills once per year. Obviously, students break the glass on things, so we have the warranty to replace that. We also install Absolute's CompuTrace product on all of our tablets. So we can monitor them in real time where they're at. Our Wi-Fi network is also very good at pinpointing. I would say we recover probably at least 75% of stolen devices. CompuTrace all of our tablets are also on Active Directory, so CompuTrace will tell us the last student ID. We call it a dog tag to log into the device. So there's been lots of occasions where a tablet's been stolen. The student who stole it logs into the device, and then we've got their ID then, so we can track them down. And CompuTrace also uses software GPS, Wi-Fi, all that kind of stuff. And since we're on Active Directory, we also have them connected to our Microsoft SCCM patch management tool, and so they get security patches, they get Microsoft endpoint protection, virus updates, that sort of thing.
And, I think one of the points about the device and breakage or theft is we have a list of top 10 questions parents always ask and students should ask about the tablet. And parents will always ask about what happens if it's stolen or if it's broken. And that's a huge concern to them because a lot of times they don't understand that it's covered under warranty. They don't understand that we can repair it here on campus. We have, certified Dell rep, repair technicians. And they're very concerned that I suppose they're going to end up owing the university money for the tablet if their student breaks it. So that is a really important question to especially parents. And they're very relieved and very pleased when they hear that we can take care of that for their students.
Yeah, and that's a positive. I would imagine a lot of you are already taking advantage of it, but we have a lot of Dell certified technicians. Even several of our student workers are Dell certified, so we do all the warranty work, and you actually get paid or reimbursed by Dell for doing that warranty work. So it's a great program if you're not already involved in it.
All right, well, let's come back to the issue of obtaining buy-in from the campus community. Well, Linda, late in the presentation, you mentioned that in many ways getting that buy-in is a bit like a sales job, and someone has written in saying that they don't like sales and they're not very good at them. So what do they do? Do you have any words of wisdom there?
I do. They should look at the slide that says talk about benefits and go through those questions because the question will give you the answer that you can sell on. And then I think I use the term selling or sales, and people are terrified of it. They don't think they're good at it. But really, selling is, I have a thing that I believe about passionately, and let me tell you why, and let me tell you what you're going to get if you embrace it. And I really think that is what sales are about. And as I've gotten more experienced, I'm a lot more comfortable with sales. I was not comfortable with sales at all early on, but I'm a pretty good salesperson now, wouldn't you say?
I would say you're very good.
And you're not really asking for money in the sense of I want to buy a car and it costs this much, but you're asking for support and investment and things that your university administration will understand, and people want to buy it. They want this. They want to buy it for you, and that's why you go out and talk to you get your strong advocates. You know who's going to be resistant, and it's easy to talk to and sell your strong advocates because they want it already. You just tell them, what are the additional things you can tell your friends, neighbors, and colleagues to help them buy in as well. So I wouldn't be afraid of sales at all, and I know that's not much help, but I would embrace it.
Okay. All right. Now, you did mention now how among the key stakeholders are going to be advocates and they're going to be naysayers. When you undertook the SIU initiative, what was the biggest pocket of resistance, or put it this way, what was the most unexpected pocket of resistance to your initiative that you encountered?
I would say it was probably on the faculty side. Just like I mentioned earlier, you have a lot of faculty that have been around a long time, and they have developed their teaching styles, their teaching materials. I mean, we have a lot of faculty that have written their own textbooks. So you know, in some of them, you are just not going to win over until you show them proof. They see proof, or they hear from the students, hey, you know, because when we did focus groups, we had one of our associate provosts for academic affairs did student focus groups and got student voices out to the academic side. And a lot of the students said, hey, such and such class, such and such professor told us not to bring our tablets to the class. We really, you know, with the classes that let us bring the tablets, it was a lot more helpful and beneficial to us. So,
don't you think, though, offering your resistant pockets, which, for example, faculty, taking away the fear, giving them some way to be able to use technology without the fear of it failing on them, because you have to understand that there are people that are very tech savvy as far as faculty or staff or students, but then there are those who aren't, or they know how to use it themselves, but they don't know how to use it to lead others with it. And until you can alleviate that anxiety and help them through that process and not make it a lot more work for them, I think you will have trouble. So those are things to address.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I'm afraid that is all the time we have left today. If we didn't get to your question, or you have some additional questions that come to you till later, we've got Chris and Olinda's contact information up on the screen there. And so as we wrap up, I really want to thank Olinda Hubbs, Chris Guy, and John Phillips for what was truly an excellent presentation. And I also want to thank Dell for its support. And thank to all the attendees for sparing an hour out of their busy day to join us. And one final reminder before we all go, we will be sending out an email to all the attendees when the recording of the webinar is ready. So thank you, and this concludes today's webcast. Goodbye.